Well, joining us to discuss these and other issues are, in London, H.Golsharifi, a journalist and commentator. Here in Tehran, we have Masomeh Ebtekar, former Iranian vice president. Well, getting off to the debate with Mr. Golsharifi in London. Don't you think it would be useful, if you like, to see these individual candidates out on the stump, as it were, perhaps not, shaking hands and kissing babies as we see in the West, but actually getting out among the people, finding out what they want and then translating that into their policies and taking that into the Majlis when and if they are elected. I mean, do you think this style of electioneering might take off or might be suitable for Iran?
I think, as I mentioned, the democracy and each country has the unique system to derive its election, and I think Iran it is not different from the other democracy in the world. As I mentioned, the legislator, they themselves have advanced to make legislation to draw how they want to derive the election for the people. But in the end of the day, the people will decide in accordance with the information that they will obtain by the different parties. And in compare with the West, when we are talking, we see in Iran, for example, for each seat, I saw the figure from the Interior Minister of Iran that 16 people for each seat they are campaigning. But we have this matter, for example, here in UK, that campaigning for one seat for between 16 people. And we know in the end of the day there are just 3 or 4 parties they are campaigning for the seats. And this is the unique and individuality of the Iranian system to derive the election. And I think it is we can say, the properties of the Iranian election.
Okay. Well, the Minister of the Interior, Mr. Paul Mohammadi, today said that he actually opposes that law that of putting up banners and posters of individual candidates. He says that he raised his objections at the cabinet level, but since it had been approved by the Parliament, there was very little that he could do about it. But why would the Majlis enact something like that, that at least in the opinion of international election watchers, actually works against its best interests?
I think they use their advantage as a legislator, and I think maybe if the other parties have the majority in the parliament, if they have the same meaning of the election, maybe they legislate the same legislation to immune their victory in the election. And I think the impartiality of the legislator, it is not very transparent in this matter, because the legislator, he has to be impartial when he wants to make legislation regarding the whole country. And I think here it is a little bit unfairness regarding the campaigning. It is came and derived by President Majlis.
Is it possible to have an almost purely digital election here?
I don't know what is the facilities acquired by the Interior Ministry to do that or not, but always the possibilities exist. But as far as I know, there are differences regarding this matter, and I think in the end they should decide it regarding the digital matters. But I think there is depends on all parties to have such matters, and I think a lot of the parties not accept this matter, and when a lot of the parties not accepted, I think the Interior Ministry, as a person that he should secure the matter of will of all parties, and as well to secure the vote of the people, should follow the will of the most parties that they want.
How influential is the press in determining the outcome of the election?
It is very clear. Each newspaper or any magazine or any part of the mass media in Iran, it is just orientated with the parties that they follow, or they have the same line with them. And we can see that most of the newspaper and press in Iran, have now in the line of the pro-government and the pro-United Front principle. And I think this matter, it is very clear, and it is not needed to be discussed. But the matter, it is very important. I think sometimes the legislation to make the other parties limited from the election, giving the reverse consequence. And this matter happening once in presidential election when Mr. Mohammad Khatami became as a president of Iran. And if the people find out there are a lot of the limitation regarding some special groups and parties, maybe they will be reversed in their idea, and their vote will be cast for those parties. They are limited from the media and mass media. And it is very clear, the legislator themselves, they have the obligation when they came in the parliament, as for example the participation front when they were in the parliament. It was very good if they make a legislation to make more strong impartiality for the mass media, those they are using the governmental sources. And this is the matter, I think, very important for our democracy, that the mass media that are using the sources of the governmental thing and the people money, it should be impartial in the election and just reverse the view of the parties and not just one faction.
Mr. Golsharifi, just some background for our international viewers here. Now, we have, I believe, at least 4 main groups competing in next week's election. How much do they differ in their policies?
I think there are a lot of the differences between the policies between those parties, and it is clear through their agenda. But I think I want to return to the previous questions from Mrs. Ibtikar regarding the referendum for Ahmadinejad. I think the turnout of the election, of parliament election in Iran, it will not be a referendum for Mr. Ahmadinejad. But it will be a referendum for the Iranian national interest, because no matter who will become a member of the parliament, because now we confront in the other scene with the United States and the other countries in the West regarding the very important issues such as nuclear energy. I think a turnout of the people regarding participation in this election to choose their candidate will be more sufficient and important for the countries. And I think the whole I think the main activities of the all parties, it will be the concentration on this matter to be more people participated in the election. And I don't want to make this election as election for Mr. Ahmadinejad as a president or the other parties, because we limited the issue of the democracy in Iran to the person, and the matter of the parliament election, it is not a person to be approved by the people or not. It is a policy should be approved. And the other point that I want to make regarding the internet and the mobile phone, we shall not undermine the role of those 2 elements. We know now the estimation of 2 million weblogger in our country, Iranian, writing about the matter. Those educated people, they know what it is going in the country, and they know what the parties want and what is the differences. And I think those people very achievement in the role of the country's activities. And in the matter, for example, today I have 4 SMS from Tehran regarding the parliament election, and I see this circulating between all parties, and all parties using this instrument to achieve their goals through that.
There is, we're talking about the international community, there is just one question that I'd like to put to both of you before we close. We have about 1 minute left, so about 20-second answers, if possible, please. Now, inevitably there has been criticism of the election process here, foreign critics even questioning its democratic credentials. Now, how does Iran measure up to other countries in the region, and in particular, since that's where much of the criticism does originate, to US allies in the region such as Saudi Arabia or Egypt? How does Iran measure up? Mr. Golsharifi, very quickly, about 10 or 15 seconds.
I think it is very clear that Iranian democracy is very unique in the region, because we haven't another democracy in the region with the same description of Iranian democracy, with those all elections that it is taking place in Iran.
I'd like to thank our guests in London, H.Golsharifi, a journalist and commentator,